Names and standing.
Believe he's at the Senior Bowl.
Good.
I'm here. Thanks, Charlie. Well, I guess just Ron, just since it's the day of the name and you've got the jacket on, what do you say now that you can talk to everybody about the Commanders?
I'm pretty excited about it. You know, it's one of these things. I think that there's a lot that it stands for, a lot that it means. You know, obviously it's a word. I think that a name. I think that kind of carries a lot for our community, for our area that we're in, and you know, I think it'll be a good representation for who we hope to be.
At what point in the process did you kind of have a feeling that this is where it was going to be? Obviously, there's been a lot of cloak and dagger behind it. When did you kind of recognize this is where it was going to go?
You know, it's one of those things that, you know, and you guys know this, that there were over 30,000 entries, you know, that people submitted as far as the name was concerned. And it was whittled down to a list, and then kept getting whittled down to a smaller list until it got to the point where, you know, there are a number of finalists. And when we got together and discussed all these finalists and what the impact would be and what it would mean, I think the one that made the most sense, obviously, is the Commanders, and that's the one we went with.
Paris.
Hey, Ron, what do you just kind of make of the rollout to all this? Just the presentation today, but also kind of the past month of things slowly trickling out and kind of people knowing that it was Commanders ahead of time.
Well, you know, it was one of those things that once it was decided, once the name was chosen, you know, the big concern was that it would get out before it needed to be out. And, you know, just trying to find the opportunity at the time was a huge challenge, you know, because trying to get things prepared and get uniforms made, because that's a huge process going forward. You know, that was always, again, one of the concerns, because somewhere along the lines we knew it would get leaked, and we were trying to prevent that. You know, we're trying to keep it as the best kept secret. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But I think the process in which we went through all the steps, you know, the way Jason led the organization through these steps, really kind of pointed towards this. And I think, you know, what the Snyders decided as far as this name is concerned, I think it's the right choice.
And what was it like kind of in your life? Did you have a lot of people asking you what the name was going to be? Or?
You know, it's interesting, you know, because this is a military community out here in California. You know, I'm visiting my parents, and it's an Army community with a small naval presence. So when a lot of people kind of thought the admirals was the direction, so a lot of my dad's Army buddies weren't too happy at first. And I said, trust me, just trust me on this. You'll be fine with it. And it actually did work out that way. So it was a plus.
Thanks.
Go, Nikki.
Ron, you kind of mentioned early on in the process that you would like it to have ties to the military. Did it mean a lot to you that they went with a name like this?
It did, you know, and again, just for the fact that when we do our salute to service, you know, it'll have a little extra meaning. It'll be a little something special. So I'm pleased with that, obviously, and again, you know, just making sure that we are, you know, paying some sort of tribute to that community, I think is important. And at the same time, I do believe it's something that our area can grasp onto as well.
And when you first saw the helmet, when you first saw the uniforms, what was your reaction?
I thought cool. I really did. I love the matte look with it. I like the combinations that we can have. I think that really pop in terms of the colors. And you know, it's kind of a cool deal. I like the alternate uniforms as well. I think that the black with the burgundy and gold on it really does stand out. I think it's something our fans will think is pretty cool for special games. And I think there's you know, there's a lot of neat things that can really just, you know, be something that the fans can gravitate towards.
John Keim.
Hey, Ron, when you have a change like this, what kind of responsibility comes with it from your perspective, just representing the new name and the new look?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's doing things the right way. Just trying to show everybody that, we have an opportunity right now to do something a little bit different, obviously, and that's an opportunity to go forward. With the Redskins and with the Washington football team, we've dealt with some pretty anxious situations and circumstances, serious ones, and now's an opportunity, I think, to establish that we're starting a new chapter. We're turning the page. We're going to go forward. Hopefully, we can move on from some of the things and situations we've dealt with, and yet at the same time still be able to honor the tradition, the past, the history, the legacies that have been left to us by the championship teams and by the Super Bowl championship team. So I think that's a pretty cool thing, and it's an opportunity for our players as we step into this new phase of our organization and team to build a new legacy. And believe me, that's something that I'm going to harp on with our players, that this is a chance to do that. And probably the best way, obviously, is to win.
And then just switching gears a little bit, so I apologize. I know this is about the name and all that, but Brian Flores came out with a lawsuit against the NFL, you being a minority coach, and I'm just curious what your reaction to that was and what your experience has been along the way to this point.
This is something that I really want to look into, really want to understand, really want to continue to follow, because my experiences and what I went through can also help be an example. I went through 7 interviews before my 8th one was the one that got me the job. Those first few interviews, I think, really helped me in terms of learning and understanding what I needed to do, what I needed to say during these interviews, and to helping me get a job. Those first few interviews really kind of, I believe, set the table for me, because it got my name out. And then the next thing I really do believe is that as you look at it, it really is about merit. I believe that. And coming from a military family where people were judged on their merit, they were judged on their rank. I just think it's important that we now look at these guys and that are going through this. And I think what Brian has gone through more so than anything else, I think that he is a guy that is frustrated, because when you look at his resume and you put it down on the table and you look at that resume and you sit there and go, wow, this guy's accomplished a lot. I mean, he started from the bottom and worked his way up. And I think that's important to note. And then you look at him, he says, man, each phase he did something even more and more, to the point where he was a play caller on defense. He was the coordinator. Okay. And when I was going through it, Sean McDermott was my coordinator. Sean called the defenses. I owe an awful lot to Lovie Smith, because when Lovie Smith and I were together in Chicago, he let me call the defense. He let me run the defense. Well, I did the same thing for Sean McDermott, and then I did the same thing for Steve Wilkes. I gave these guys their opportunity to build on it. And so when you look at resumes of guys like that, you sit there and go, wow, these guys deserve opportunities. They deserve chances. And to me, that's what the Rooney Rule stood for, is that, hey, it was a chance to open the door, get your foot in it, and then let the merit speak for itself. And I think that's the issue here, is that if you put resumes, took the names off, changed the teams that they had coached for and grew up with, and just put them on the table, and you looked at all these resumes, I think Brian Flores is the type of resume you're going to point at. Leslie Frazier's is the type of resume you're going to point at. Eric Bieniemy's is the type of resume you'll point at. Why? Because of the merit. I mean, these are guys that either played in the league or started early in their career in the league and have worked their way up to where they are today. I mean, you said, well, what's so intriguing about Brian Flores? Well, he started with Bill Belichick. So there, well, what's so intriguing about Leslie Frazier? He started with Andy Reid and worked for Tony Dungy at one point, and Eric Bieniemy, he's a guy that played in the league. And then you look at how he got up and he's worked for Andy Reid. I mean, why don't we look at that and say, merit? Let's judge people on merit. Let's make decisions based on that. And that was always, initially my thought when I was going through, and my resume, I felt spoke for itself eventually when Jerry Richardson gave me my opportunity. I think that was what was probably the most intriguing thing, because I can remember one of the questions I got in my interview with him, and that was, when you were in San Diego, you were the #1 defense in the NFL, and you didn't have a Pro Bowl, All-Pro player. How did you do that? And my answer was simply just, we worked on the team concept. That all ships will rise when the tides rise, and the guys believe that. And so what I'm saying is, when you look at these guys, let's judge them on merit. And I think this is something that we have to look at a little bit more, because again, the resumes, what you've done and how you've grown and the success you've had, the responsibilities you had, that I think is what, and I don't want to put words in Brian Flores' mouth, but from my perspective, this is a very accomplished coach. And for him to be in the situation he is, I can see the frustration. I can feel the frustration, and it's almost as if this is your last resort, because how does a guy like that get left out of the hiring cycle? How does Eric and Leslie, just to name a few of those guys that have gone through this and that have been frustrated. I got a lot of respect for that. I know the league has tried and is continuing to try to bring these types of candidates and put them in front of the people that are making the decisions. How can I say that? Because I talked with Troy Vincent and listened to him. I've talked to the commissioner and listened to him and the positive things that he has talked about trying to implement, so we can go forward and put all people of color, gender in front of the decision makers, so that the best decisions, the right decisions are being made, and they're being made based off of merit. Sorry
David
about
Aldridge.
the soapbox, but that's kind of how I felt.
Stay on the soapbox for a second there, Ron. Have you talked over the last couple of years? You don't have to give specific names if you don't want, but with coaches of color, candidates of color who have run into these roadblocks again and again and again to get head coaching jobs? I've talked to a few, and I've heard their frustration. And a couple of these guys, I'm been part of the diversity committee. I've gone to those meetings. I've listened to the frustrations, and it's tough. It's hard because it's about merit. I remember when Commissioner Tagliabue had an informal, formal dinner where he brought a group of us minority coaches, coordinators. We were all coordinators too that were in that room, and we're all of color, and we all got an opportunity to speak our piece. And I can remember listening to the frustration some of these guys were talking about not getting the opportunities. And I can remember one guy that was very humble when he spoke, and that was Romeo Crennel. And if anybody, in my opinion, at that time deserved the opportunity, it was him, because he was Bill Belichick's coordinator, and I just felt the guy deserved the opportunity because of who he worked for, because of the success they had, and he was part of that success. He was a play caller who had a say in what was going on. And I just thought, man, he deserves this chance. And he was probably the most humblest of all the coaches that spoke. And I just kept thinking, here's this guy that just deserved it. They just got off winning the Super Bowl, and they deserved this opportunity, and the commissioner was there. Several owners were there. I can remember listening to Mr. Rooney speak, who the rule is named after, and what he was trying to get accomplished. And I'll say this about the Steelers: they were an organization to put their money where their mouth is, because they hired Mike, who's been there a long time and been very successful. And I can listen to. I remember listening to some of the other owners that spoke. Jerry Jones was very eloquent when he spoke. I thought he was right on. And it was just one of those things that the league has done some things, and probably can do more. But I think with what Troy has tried to implement most recently with the commissioner backing him, has been very good. There's a lot of things that we're trying to do, but the key is, I think, again, we've got to continue to find opportunities and avenues, put these guys in front of the people that make decisions. And we also got to make sure everybody understands, or at least I believe, if you're going to do this, you got to really hire people of merit off of what they've accomplished and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or at least that's kind of what I see things, David.
If I may turn it to the name again for a second, I'm sure they asked you what you, not so much what name you wanted, but what you wanted the name to represent. And I wonder what you told them.
Well, David and Nikki's right. One of the things I did talk about is wanted to something that did help represent and or at least, brought to mind the military. And that's a personal thing. But some of the things was something that we believe that the community could latch on to, the community could get behind, that help also stand for the community itself. I mean, the Washington D.C. and Maryland and Virginia, for the most part, I mean, all three are represented in the logo. I think that's a really cool thing, just because of our fan base. We don't want to leave anybody. I want to make sure everybody's included. It was something that that for the most part was a strong, I think, representation as well. And I just, I like the idea of commander, because to me, first thing I always thought about was just leaders. And, it's an opportunity for us to lead. I mean, I'd like to believe that some of the things that Jason and I have done, what the Snyder's allowing us to do in terms of the people we've hired, how we're trying to get things changed, how we're trying to work on our culture and make sure it's the right type of culture to go forward that can represent our community. I think that's important. And I really do appreciate, what we're doing and how we're doing it. Now, again, the big thing, and I get it, because it all comes back to one thing, and that's what I told John, and that is winning. We have to win. We have to win. And that's a goal.
JP.
Hey, Ron, thank you for the time. Was there any part of today that you wish you were here for, or were you comfortable with your role?
No, I would have liked to have been there, but we celebrated my dad's 86th birthday, and that was really a cool deal for me out here, getting a chance to see mom and dad and hanging out with my brothers. It's kind of a neat thing. It really is. So, but I do miss. I feel bad about having missed the opportunity to being there. Stephanie and I did get up at 4:00 this morning to tune in. We were live streaming. And then I obviously did the piece with Gail King and the rest of the CBS crew, who I really appreciated. But I would have loved to have been there. I really would have, just because of the opportunity to help announce the name. I do appreciate the part that I did have, but I would have liked to have been there. I really would have, and I do mean that sincerely.
I get it. 86 for your father means a lot. That's a high number. You're also not in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. Have you talked to those folks? How's the scouting community doing? How are perhaps the quarterbacks looking?
They're doing well. I talked to Martin and Marty the last couple of days. They're getting all their interviews done. They've had an opportunity to watch the quarterbacks. They've watched quarterbacks at the East-West Shrine game. They've watched quarterbacks at the NFLPA game, and they continue to do those things. And once we start getting ready, we get back, we will get right into it. We'll have meetings with the scouting department, personnel department, as we prepare to go to the combine. Real excited about getting to the combine because of the opportunity to bring these guys into your rooms and meet with them individually, meet with them privately, and really get a chance to dive into who they are. So this is going to be an interesting process for us as we go forward. As I said, we're looking at every avenue. There's a lot of things that we're still discussing and talking about as far as that position is concerned, primarily. And we'll see. I mean, we like I said, we understand winning is important, and we also understand that there's certain things we got to do to give ourselves the best chance.
Thanks.
Phillips.
Since you mentioned quarterbacks, I'll ask this. Do you feel like today's announcement, the rebranding, makes this place potentially more enticing for players to join?
Absolutely, Michael. I really do. I think, the rebrand is something that's kind of unique. To me, it's an opportunity to work on and grow on our legacy, because it is a clean slate as the Commanders. And I think it's an opportunity to be part of something that I think is going to be unique and special. I love where we are. I love where we're located. I love the community that we play for. I love the division that we're in, because I think it's a very good football division. It's also a division that has a lot of the top TV markets. I'm making my pitch, if you notice, Michael. I like our team. I like where we are. We got the number 6 ranked offensive line, so we have a chance to protect the guy. We've got a 1,000-yard rusher. We have a 1,000-yard receiver. I can go down the list, but I do think, Michael, that this is something that we most certainly can use as we start going through the whole thing, and we'll see what happens.
I'm sold. Thank you.
All righty.
Pete.
Jonathan Allen has been someone who's been central to this rollout, and today he was on the podium addressing alumni and then all the fans. What makes him a good person to have as a current player representing you all in this new step?
Well, he's a young man that I think really fits the football team and also fits the community. I think the thing about him, obviously, is that he's a guy that had success and has had and is having success in his career. He earned a nice contract. He signed it, and he continued to play at that top level. He's a guy that, he's our Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee 2 years in a row. He's a guy that is community oriented. And I think that's part of the whole idea and attitude behind the brand, is that something that also helps represent the community. Well, Jonathan, we feel, does that. There's a number of guys that do it. The fortunate thing for us is Jonathan's still here in the area. A lot of the guys, and unfortunately a good number of them, and some other guys we would like to be part of this, aren't here. Chase is in Colorado, working his rehab program out there with some very noted people. Terry's away. He's back home, actually, in Indiana. Those are 2 guys that that were featured on the posters. In the commercial, for the most part, they're guys that you would have loved to have had them here, but we understand these are guys that are doing their own thing right now. So kind of like my situation, and so just know that Jonathan, for a lot of reasons, is a big part of it, but also because of his availability.
And you're someone who's always talked about how when you came here as a player, you noticed the stands bouncing, and just you're familiar with the history of this franchise. How do you think the rebranding went in terms of keeping some of that past with the colors and the logos and all that?
Well, I just hope everybody understands that that's one of the things that we wanted to do. We wanted to honor our the legacy that was built before us. The things that Joe Gibbs and his championship teams did for us, and those other teams that really that set the tone and tempo as far as a winning tradition that we need to desperately get back to. I really do appreciate the area and the fan base. It's kind of interesting because of the comments. My wife reads and tells me what people are thinking or saying on social media, and it's interesting how a lot of the people that are a number of longtime fans that seem to say we can get used to it, but the key guys is they got to win. And again, just so everybody knows, I get it. I see the messaging, and that's what we're working towards.
Finish up with Scott.
Hey, Ron, appreciate you taking the time. Sometimes teams take on the personality and identity of the city, the community, and even the name. When you envision Washington Commanders on the field, on the football field, what do you want them to kind of represent and play like Commanders? What is that to you?
To me, it's about leadership. It's about, about playing and setting the example. I want our football team to play hard. You guys know it's something I've talked about, is play hard. If you play hard, a lot of good things will happen. If you play hard, the fans will come and appreciate your effort. Just like last year, playing that last game and playing hard and playing for something. And I said this, our offensive guys, our defensive guys, they played hard for each other. They played hard that we had a running back that needed 140 plus yards to rush for 1,000.
well, they blocked their butts off and gave him a chance to get that 1,000 yards. We had a receiver that needed 60 yards to have 1,000, 2 back-to-back, and those guys played to give that guy that opportunity. They played hard, and so to me, that's what I think first and foremost about is obviously the leadership thing, and you have to set the tone for who you are. You've got to go out and play hard. You've got to work hard. You've got to do things the right way. You've got to set the tone. You've got to set the example. You've got to be the ones that are willing to get out in front, get out into the community, help the community, and give back to the community. You can't always take, and that's one of the reasons why, Stephanie and I have been involved in a lot of charitable events and stuff like that for that particular reason. That is, we just don't want to take from the community. We want to give back to the community. And I think that's part of why, to me, Commanders is important, because it's going to show that you're going to want to get out in front. You're going to want to set the tone and tempo for things.
So the new name is here, and now there's already a lot of talk about where the new stadium is going to be, Ron. And even DC Mayor Muriel Bowser came out with a statement today saying,
"Oh yeah,
the next chapter for the Washington Commanders should be playing in DC." I know you gave your opinion on the name and where your heart was. Wondering if you have a reaction or any opinion as to where the new stadium should be.
Well, I think the new stadium should be where it's going to represent the community the best. It's going to be where our fans can get to and have great access to, and really be able to truly enjoy watching us. I'd love to see us build the type of atmosphere that was at old RFK. And that's really what I'm hoping for, is that wherever that stadium is, we're able to build the type of rapport that we had, this organization had with that fan base. I mean, there was nothing like it. I'm telling you, and for those people who remember, they know what I'm talking about. I mean, you walk in there and you were walking in there and you were wondering if those stands were going to come down, because it moved, it rocked, it bounced, it got your attention as an opposing player coming into that stadium. So wherever it is, I hope we can build that type of relationship with our fan base.
Moises, do you have one?
Yes, sir. Ron, congratulations on being part of this process. First of all, in Spanish it's going to be Los Comandantes. So can we get a Los Comandantes from you?
Yeah.
And second, how hard was it to keep this secret?
Well, the Los Comandantes is really kind of cool. I was actually with a friend yesterday, a retired Army colonel, and he gave me a coin. It's one of those command coins that you get from the military guys. And he was a commander, a brigade commander. He gave me his coin, and he said, on the coin, it has Los Comandantes on it. And I looked at it and it said the Commanders. And I just smiled. I did not react. Okay. But it was an interesting thing. And I'll have to show you the coin, Moises, when I see you, because I'm going to carry it with me. It's kind of a neat little trinket, but it represents something and it means something to me.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.